you mentioned the medical kidnapping of children.
Yes.
When you hear the stories, you think, no, that's not something that really happened. There must have been a reason. But this is much more widespread and much more abusive. And it reminds me, because in the U.S. history, we had a sorry part of our history. They had the orphan trains. You have the orphans, and what do? We put them in trains and we take them to a place, and maybe, the justification, we're going to give them to a good family with lots of money. That's in the best interest of the child.
Yes.
And there's a lot of issues that we are whitewashing, and we are pretending are not really problems, but are solutions somehow. Can you comment a little bit more about that?
It's a trauma-based system. And specific numbers, so foster care, there's 440,000 plus kids in foster care.
Mm-hmm.
So let's take the fatherless aspect and add it in with foster care.
Right.
83% of prisoners came from fatherless homes.
Right.
So let's take the 440,000 in foster care, let's just put half the dads back into their lives.
Right.
So now 200,000 kids are now not in the foster system.
Right.
They're with a blood relative.
Right.
And the stats are, most of them, 83%, are going to be criminals.
Right.
They're criminalizing a system based on trauma. So you create the trauma, which then creates the criminalization.
Right.
And both of them are funded. You have federal funds down to the state level.
Right.
And it's like, I hate to say it, it's like a baby mill. Whether it's the baby, whether it's foster care, or whether it's your grandparents.
Right. Right.
The state is stepping in because the feds are incentivizing to do so.
And that's the operative word. The feds are incentivizing people. They're incentivizing single-parent households. They're incentivizing the divorce industry. They're incentivizing CPS taking kids. They're incentivizing the foster care industry. They are incentivizing the destruction of the family. But we don't want to come to grips with that is really what's happening. We want to whitewash everything like it really can't be that bad.
Yeah.
But what you see is just the opposite.
Yeah, it's the Wizard of Oz. You just pull the curtain back, the emperor has no clothes, and they just hope that enough people don't wake up to this, because when you tell people your story,
They don't believe you.
your family doesn't believe you, your best friend doesn't believe you. They go, they can't be that corrupt. But trust me, I hear it daily. I hear it daily. I see the numbers all the time. There's 150,000 guardianships in the United States right now that would be my grandparents, your grandparents. They're guardianshipped totaling $26 billion. Then you got $55 billion in family court and child support orders and rears. And I was just talking with one of the legislators from Wyoming. And I asked him, before I asked you this question, you have any friends in Utah? And he goes, yeah, I do. I said, Utah just passed a law. If you're behind on child support, let's say it's $50, $100, whatever. Let's say it's $10,000. It doesn't really matter the amount. In Utah, they just implemented, you cannot buy a hunting license or fishing license if you're behind on child support. So everyone was locked down for the last year.
Right.
Now you're being able to go back out. Let's say someone fell on a hardship and lost their job, so they fell behind on like 6 months worth of child support payments.
Right.
Because they lost their job.
Right.
You're going to tell me you can't take your kid out go hunting and fishing?
Yeah.
What other liberties are they going to take? I mean, they already illegally try to suspend your license if you're behind on child support.
Right.
That's an illegal order. They harp on, you can't sit in on these court proceedings to see if they're staying transparent. That's another liberty that they're trying to take away. And then they're not producing the paperwork so that if there is a poor decision in court, you can appeal it. I mean, they're taking 6 months to get transcripts. Specifically, John Mass's judge took 6 months to make a decision. The hearing was in May, and the judge waited till December. He hadn't seen his kids in 3 years. In 3 years, how is that not an expedited? Like, you go to the doctor and they say stat. That means we need something right now. Stat.
Right now.
So the courts need to implement the stat
rule.
The stat rule, just like when you go into a doctor and they need something immediate, because it's that pressing of an issue.
So at CPAC here, we've had a couple of people that are running for the Attorney General's office that have their booths here. I believe that the current Attorney General is supposed to be speaking or has spoken. I'm not positive. But I decided to take a look at the Texas Office of the Attorney General. And one of their main duties, they've got 5 core duties, but one of their big duties, and probably the one that takes up most of their time, their labor force, the money and everything else, is the Child Support Enforcement Division. And when you look at the support issue, everything is boiled down to money. Support of a child is much more than money. It's the emotional.
They preach that in court,
right?
But they don't mean it.
They don't
in
mean
reality.
it because every order it's talked about how much money you owe, and it may not even be. You may be the person that said, "Wait a minute, I didn't even want a divorce." My husband or my wife, either one, they filed for divorce, they got the divorce, and now I need to pay to be a visitor in my child's life. Because I'm a visitor, you're going to say that we need to even things out, and everything comes down to money, because if the state collects the money, the state collects more money from the federal government. It is a money racket. But the idea of support, child support, encompasses so much more, as you know.
Yes.
So the people that you deal with, what are their thoughts about the child support issue? Do they just look at the money part, or do they say, wait a minute, I want to be the supportive parent. I want to be there to guide my child, to teach my religious values, to be there to do homework with him or her, things along those lines.
Most people would say I would get better odds and percentages from a loan from the mob than from the court. That's why they call the court a cartel, basically.
Right.
Because they're extorting what they know you love.
Right.
Your child.
Your child.
So
it is an extortion.
We're coming out of the pandemic, and California was bragging. So half the economy just tanked. People were losing their jobs. They're losing their homes.
Right.
Last year, California bragged that they collected more money. I think it was $135 million last year. Why people were out of work.
Right.
They were there was no relief.
Right.
There you got state relief, with the rollout from the feds.
Right.
But you didn't get state relief from your child support.
Right. Well, and it was even worse than that because, and I heard many people complain about this. I don't know the details completely, but in Texas, they went from about 4.4 billion up to 4.8 billion. So that's 400 million. But what was happening was that if you were a parent who was considered a non-custodial parent, or I don't know if you had to be behind as well or not, but your money would go to the custodial parent.
Yes.
So even though you're the person who's working to pay for a child support order that the court says there's got to be a child support order, somebody's got to get it. And being as you're the non-custodial, you're going to get it. And you may be the one who's lost your work and everything else. You're the one who's needing the relief as well, but you get that taken away by the state. I think the state counted that as additional child support that they collected. That's why during the pandemic, how is it that we increased child support collections by 10% when over 2 million jobs were lost? Thousands of businesses went broke. How did that happen? There's only one explanation from my perspective.
Well, the numbers don't lie. It has nothing to do with the best interest of the child, which they preach. It has to do with money.
It has to do with the best interest of the
almighty dollar. So Reagan once said, to prove and to show a success, it shouldn't be how many people we put on state assistance. It should be how many people we got off.
Absolutely.
So when California's bragging that they collected more money,
it's a failure.
It's a complete failure. A complete and utter failure to brag. They're bragging about it.
The metric that they're using is absolutely incorrect.
Yes.
Absolutely.